with Frank Bull.
Welcome back to Sunday Sound Off, and our first hot topic of the night. Will Bruce Weber survive if K-State does not make the NCAA tournament? Stan, I'm going to start with you again.
Well, first of all, I know Blair studies this a lot more, so he'll tell us exactly how it's going to play out and where K-State's going to be. But right now, if we were talking today, I think Blair would say they're in the NCAA tournament, and they've already finished playing Kansas, West Virginia, and Baylor. Their last 6 games are very winnable. We'll see how they do. I think that it looks like there are going to be 7 teams from the Big 12 likely to make the NCAA tournament. I think K-State's going to finish ahead of Oklahoma, Texas, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and probably TCU. So I think they're going to make the tournament. But if they do not make the tournament, then the question becomes real, and it'll be the 3rd straight year that K-State has not made the NCAA tournament. What decision does John Currie make? Well, John Currie's the guy that hired Bruce Weber. I think that always comes into play, makes it a slower process. And if K-State does or does not make it, it's going to be right there splitting a hair. And I think the core of the K-State basketball team is 3 sophomores and a freshman, Xavier Sneed, who's going to end up being their best player very soon. So I would lean, 51-49 that he retains his job. But it is going to be a high risk. And if you're a good friend of Bruce Weber, you say, just make the NCAA tournament and take this question off the docket.
Blair, does he make it?
Yes. Kansas State does make the tournament this year because Stan's right. They've gone through the gauntlet of games, Kansas, Baylor, and West Virginia, and went 2-4 in those games, by the way. Not a bad record against teams that are, at least this week, ranked in the top 13 or 14 in the country. The schedule softens. There's an opportunity there for Kansas State to build credentials, add some wins. Starting Wednesday night, I believe it's Wednesday night, with Iowa State coming to Manhattan. So that's a big game for Kansas State. I think the question here is not will he survive, it's should he survive. I think he will. I don't know if he should if Kansas State doesn't make the NCAA tournament. It will be 3 years without NCAA play if for some reason Kansas State falters. And if they do falter, they will have faltered against a schedule that where there is winning opportunity for them. So I think John Currie will have a decision to make at the end of the season if Kansas State falls short of the NCAA.
Now to the man that has a vote on the AP college basketball poll, Soren Petro.
Yeah, pump the brakes here, people. Let's calm down a little bit on putting him into the NCAA tournament. Look, I did say before the year that I thought they had to go 10-8 in this league, and they had to get at least 2 wins against the triumvirate of Kansas, West Virginia, and Baylor. They've got those 2 wins, but reality is they need to go 4-2 just to get to 500. Now, I think the strength of the Big 12 has proven to be better than I thought it was going to be coming into the year, and maybe the overall mediocrity of the rest of college basketball has helped them out. I think 9-9 will probably get them there. But again, they've got to go 4-2 in these last 6 games to get to 9-9, and 3 of those games are on the road, and they're not exactly road warriors. They're better this year than they've been the last couple of years, but I think they definitely need all 4 wins. I think they need a 500 record. If they don't get a 500 record, they're going to need a couple of wins in Kansas City, and I don't know that that's possible. So I think they've got to get to 500. Go 4-2. Ken Pom predicts them to go 4-2, and I think that they probably do get in. Now the question of is he going to be back? Of course he's going to be back. I mean, as long as Currie's the athletic director, my opinion is he's not going to label his own hire a failure and bring him out. They built this non-conference schedule, which was very easy, to fatten the record. They're going to have 21, 20 wins, an NIT run to get him over 20 wins if he would go 2-4 down the stretch and be looking at 19 wins at the end of the season. They'll call it a 20-win season. They'll call it progress, and he will be back regardless.
All right, here's our second hot topic of the evening. Why can't Kansas put anyone away? Blair, is it because the Big 12 is better or just because Kansas is not as good?
Yes, on the Big 12 being better than we thought. Soren's right. They're going to get 7 in the NCAA tournament, I think, which would be the 4th straight year that 70% of the league is in. But yeah, Kansas I think they've averaged outscoring their conference opponents by 4, which is not something you would expect from a team that's 10-2 in the league and with its biggest opportunity in front of them this week with games at home against West Virginia and then at Baylor on Saturday. But look at what Kansas is about here. They have fewer steals, fewer block shots, more turnovers, and this is in conference games, and shoot free throws worse than their opponents. Those aren't the kind of stats that you'd expect from a team that's in first place with having won 10 to 12 conference games. So what is Kansas doing right? Well, they shoot the ball from the perimeter extremely well. 4 of their starters are over 40% from threes, all but Landon Lucas, and then he rebounds the ball really well. Kansas does that really well, so well that it's offset some of these other issues that they have. The bad free throw shooting is all just an issue in these close games. They have a chance to stretch out some of these games and don't do it. Just the other day at Texas Tech, they could have stretched that thing out a little bit more, but missed a lot of free throws, including the front half of some 1-and-1s. I think it's going to be this way for Kansas the rest of the year.
Saran?
I don't know, let me see. Can I throw a dart right here and see what it lands on? Look, after this season's over, after the NCAA tournament's over, we're all going to claim to be geniuses. We're going to cite the stats that show this is where they were weak. Hey, they're almost a point per game worse than their margin or their point differential than at any time during Bill Self's career. The lowest previous to this was his first year in taking over. So we will point to that and say, look, the warning signs were here all year. They were just barely winning. They were lucky to win. They were nail biters. However, if they do have a long run, if they go to the Final Four, if they get to the championship game, or should we say even win it all, we'll say this is a team that's battle tested and tough. They learned how to win those close games. Winning by 20 some odd points, that's not how you learn to win those tough tournament games. They were battle tested, and that's how they got it done. The end of the script is going to be that what determines what this team was all about. I'll lean towards the fact that it's about matchups. That's always the NCAA tournament. That's a bit of a cop-out. But this year's field doesn't have an undefeated Kentucky team looming out there. I don't see a team loaded with all kinds of NBA difference makers unless Duke suddenly gets healthy and starts putting it together. So I think this team is going to be, battle-tested and tough. I think they'll go deep into the tournament. They won the NCAA tournament with the biggest margin, the biggest point differential in Bill Self's history. Why not turn around and win it with the smallest? I think this team has got the pieces it takes to make a run. They look a lot like your Villanova team from last year, Frank.
Oh, okay. There you go. Stan, what do you think? Caught me by surprise there. Go ahead, Stan.
That'll catch you a pause, definitely, if you say Villanova. Frank just has to stop and think about the past for a little bit.
Slow my heart down just a beat or two. Yes.
I think the real reason why Kansas is playing such close games and the fact that they can't put people away is because of fatigue. They don't have the depth that they've had in the past. Their starters are fine. They're winners, and they know they're going to win the game at the end, but they're getting worn out. And teams are making comebacks. They're going to have their times where they're in control of the game, and there are going to be times where they're a little tired. They used to be substituted for, but now they're not. Frank Mason just keeps playing, and he's the type of player that knows when to turn it on, when to slow down. Blair made a great point that they don't shoot their free throws well. The team in the lead is going to get fouled and have to go to the line to put the game away. Kansas isn't quite as good as that. Now, Saran talks about the NCAA tournament, and this is very important because we can't look at the Big 12 games and say they're playing closer games and have any indication of what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament because they're not going to be fatigued. Roy Williams told us many, many, many years ago, the timeouts are way too long. The guys get way too much rest. It'll work perfect for Kansas. The starters will get extra rest in the NCAA tournament. As long as Landon Lucas does not get in foul trouble, they're going to be fine. But watching him, I've been out right there on the court next to him, and they are just tired compared to the Kansas Jayhawk teams in the past that could go 9 deep. They're not playing that kind of way this year, and it makes the games closer.
All right, guys, our final hot topic. We got about 30 seconds each on this. Will the Royals finish above 500? Saran, we talked about this because everybody's coming out. Nobody's predicting they're going to be higher than 500.
Yeah, the good news is the Pacoda projections, one of the computer models, has them down in the 70 win range. And that's where they've been a lot of the times during this run. Look, bottom line is, when you look at their record of the last 4 years, 4 times in a row, they've been at 500 or better. Last year, they should have been above 500, but really mailed it in once they knew they weren't in contention. So I'll say yes. I like what they were able to do to circle the wagons and add some pitching to replace Giordano Ventura after his tragic passing. The bullpen's the question, but I talked to Dayton Moore the other day. They like the power arms they've got. They got to learn how to get people out. I'll take my chances that, yeah, they put the finishing touches on this team at the trade deadline, and it's an above 500 team fighting for the division championship.
Stan?
I don't believe in Pacoda, but I do believe in Dayton Moore. And he says he feels better about this team going into the 2017 season than he did the 2014 season. Now, I know it took a while for them to get going in 2014, but they turned out to be the Royals we know. After playing in 2 straight World Series, I thought they were a worn-out team last year. I do not expect that to be a factor. There are plenty of question marks around a baseball team, but yes, I do think they'll be above 500. Maybe not a division champion in a tough division, but fighting for the wild card. And I expect guys like Alex Gordon and Mike Moustakas to be much bigger factors this year. I think that'll help the Royals a bunch.
Blair?
Everybody's down on Bill Pecota. I don't understand it. He was a solid backup infielder for such a long time. That's right. Gordon, comeback season from Gordon, Moose, full season, Lorenzo Cain, healthy. All these factors that you got to factor into this season for the Royals. I know it's the what-if game this time of year for baseball, but I think the Royals actually have fewer what-ifs than a lot of teams in baseball. Yes, it's a team that's going to finish over 500.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll just use that as another chip on their shoulder and come roaring out at the beginning of the season and get going from there. We'll see, of course.
A lot of contract years too, Frank.
But yeah, a lot of contractors help. Hosmer as well really wants to put up some big numbers. We'll see. Okay, up next, we're going to get some final thoughts from the panel. That's next on Sunday Sound Off.